I am really excited. This is a great way to spend the Friday night and welcome in the weekend. But we are celebrating Kwan's Black Lotus to the Vow. And
Yes.
he's going to be in conversation with Robert Arellano. And I am so excited. So I'm not going to give away any spoilers or anything. But if you love like kick ass, assassin, badass women, you pretty much need to read this book. Pretty much, right? Pretty much like you need to read this book because the main character is a retired assassin and she kind of gets framed for killing someone she didn't kill, and thus begins the adventure of this story. And that's all I'm going to tell you. And if you would like to purchase this amazing and awesome book, which is the best way to support an author, I mean, I'm a bookseller, so biased, but it's true. It's the best way to support an author. If you look down below, there's going to be the buy book button. And what's great too is Quan is going to be doing personalized booklets for people as well. So you have 1 week to finish putting in that request. And also, if you have questions, because this is your opportunity to get to pry the mind of our authors, then make sure right down there where it says ask a question, click that button, and you can submit questions for the events. Robert, I am going to pass things off to you, and I will see you guys at the end of the event.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you, Mysterious Galaxy, for hosting us. And thank you, everyone, for coming
Yes.
out. I'll tell you a little more about Quan because I've been a fan for a while. And
Oh man, thank you.
Akashic Books is great. I just want to give people a little more background on you, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. And
Okay.
then after a little bit of my prepared questions, we'll see what the audience has to ask. Quan is the best-selling, award-winning author, more than 30 novels, including really wildly popular animal series, Black Lotus, and of course the book that got published this week is Black Lotus 2, The Vow, Gangsta, Road Dogs, Street Dreams, Hoodlum, and Section 8. He's been featured in Vibe, King, Entertainment Weekly, and Time Magazine. Quan was the recipient of the 2012 and 2013 Street Lit Book Awards medals, and that was in adult fiction for Eviction Notice and Animal. His credits also include featured commentary on documentaries like Iceberg Slim, Portrait of a Pimp, which was produced by Ice-T, as well as a recurring role on TV's Celebrity Crime Files as an analyst. He lives in New Jersey. We got something in common. I'm from Jersey. And
Oh,
although I'm zooming in on this conversation from the West Coast tonight, but he spends his time writing, cooking, and watching the Vampire Diaries with his teenage daughters. Welcome, Quan. So
yes.
nice to have you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you doing this.
It's a real pleasure. You know, it's sort of this thing. I didn't even plan this, but Akashic Books is like feels like a family when you got books on Akashic. So
Definitely, man. Everybody kind of gets together and does their part to, keep the engine moving. So that's one of the things that I really appreciate about Johnny and those guys over there.
that's right. Speaking about Johnny Temple, publisher of Akashic for, well, gosh, more than 20 years now. So um, I figure I should start off, just keep it light though, with how's your week been going, Quan?
My week has been a little crazy, a little crazy, a little crazy, a little normal because like I'm sure like everybody else I've been stalking this whole election thing, and like this has to have been the longest election in history that I know of.
Yeah. Time slowed down too, which it's been
Yeah,
painful.
yeah. It's just like it's like come on, man. Like, what are you guys gonna do? Like, what's happening? Are we gonna count the votes? We gonna count the ballot? What are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, your Black Lotus 2 came out on election day?
Yes, yes. And and that was the universe. And I'm gonna tell you
Yeah.
why I say that was the universe. Initially, Black Lotus 2 was supposed to come out in May. Me, I'm notorious with missing deadlines. But and no, with the Black Lotus 2, it's just like a lot of things were happening at the time. Like my daughter's mom died, my dad died. Like it was just like bad for me. So I was kind of in a sunken place. And
No.
but when I pulled myself out of the sunken place, I rewrote the story and put forth, I think, a far better narrative than originally what I started out with.
That is a gift. That is the universe. And I'm happy to hear I'm not the only one who's a little notorious about deadlines.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm terrible with deadlines.
yeah. We will always remember the week that this book was published. Where were you?
Election day,
Yeah.
and it's so funny. I was standing outside the polls because I voted. I left my house like 5:30 in the morning to vote. My wife had to wait until she got off work, so we went a little later. And I was just kind of standing outside waiting for her to do her thing, and people were pulling up like, "Where can we vote?" I'm like, "Man, right in here." And so I'm directing traffic. They thought I was working the polls because I'm directing traffic, and
Oh,
no, I just wanted everybody to vote, man. You know, it's important. It was important. It still is important. Vote. You know, speak whatever future you see for yourself and your children. Now is the time to do your part to put it in motion.
yes, absolutely. Um, and well, with the publication this week, I was able to. I remember when Black Lotus came out. I think it was like 2014, the first book,
Yeah.
maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like excited. I'm on Akashic. I always check stuff out. And then this one, we see, we have some of the same characters. Um, and I'm going to do my best. You can stop me anytime if it feels like I'm giving too much away. I'm a writer, and I also want people to experience the joy of discovering your characters, whether or not they've read Black Lotus. They can really jump in and read Black Lotus too, The Vow.
Like a standalone, yeah.
Yeah, and they can still get a lot out of it and then move backwards, kind of nonlinear in time and read the first book. Um, but I really love the character Kala, and um, and I don't want to give too much away, but I mean these characters, not even just between the two Black Lotus books, you've got this universe, like this world Bible of characters who sometimes overlap, not just in a series, right? But even between standalones.
Right.
How do you keep track of them all? Do you have a big like bulletin board and do a like
No.
post-it notes, or is it all up your way?
And that's the crazy thing. All in here, I couldn't tell you what I had for dinner last night, but I can tell you the backstories of all of these characters. I think that one of the most amazing things about the Black Lotus is I wrote the first Black Lotus because what you see what you see in the Black Lotus novel that Akashic released, the first one, was really just I took a chapter out of the original Black Lotus novel, which I wrote in like probably 2006, and I built a story around it. So when I did the original Black Lotus novel, like I was taking it to publishers because I was already signed to a major. I was already kind of building my brand, and they were like, "You've done astronomical numbers in street fiction. You can't switch lanes. Don't do that." And I'm like, "But it's a great story." And nobody, I mean, when I say nobody wanted to gamble on it. And I met Johnny and those guys through Marvelous and Prodigy, and they were like, "We'll do it." And I'm like, "Okay." And so it just struck gold with it.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And you got some love I see in the little question column here. We are glad you did it.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it too because that's my passion. And with the Black Lotus novel, because I feel like as an author, a lot of times when you become successful at writing in one genre or in one space, they try to keep you in that space.
Yeah.
But I mean, like as writers, we're creatives. We should be able to write
Yeah.
whatever we want.
Yeah. In fact, I can't help but want to ask a few writer questions. I'm sure there's other writers
Yeah.
and aspiring writers here. Genre is a problem sometimes, and I know in just the last few days of like really brushing up on knowing what you're doing, there's been awesome press, some great book blogs. I see stuff all over Twitter, Facebook, Instagram about this book. It's really good. But I've seen 4 or 5 different categories: street lit, urban novel, crime, of course, the dark novel, and I also, I feel like I've seen some interviews where like you said right now, you don't necessarily want to be categorized or put into a box. But
At
do you
all.
feel like there's any use to any of this, whether it's just so that people prick up their ears and say, "Oh yeah, I've heard about this movement, the urban novel or street lit." Is there any good, or do we just got to live with it?
I mean, it's like you ever hear the phrase a place for everything and everything in its place?
Sure.
I'm saying it correctly. So I think that, and with the whole urban, like I didn't start out as an urban fiction writer. I was writing vampire novels and demon novels, but
Yeah.
in the shuffle of all of that was this book that I wrote called GANGSTA,
Yeah.
which was what catapulted me into the mainstream. So the first time, and I tell the story a lot, but I know some people have never heard it. The first time I ever heard the phrase urban fiction, I was at I went to lunch with Monique Patterson and Matthew Shear from St. Martin's Press. God bless Matthew, passed a few years ago. And I had never, ever in my life been to a publishing meeting. I didn't know what the requirements were. I showed up in a Dickie suit and some Chuck Taylors. And I got a cigarette behind my ear. And I walk into this really, really nice restaurant. And everybody's just looking at me like, and Matthew jumped up and he was like, "You are it. You are it." And I said, "Okay, what's it?" He was like, "You are urban fiction. You are the face of urban fiction." And I'm like, "Yo, I don't even know what that is. Like, what is that? What is that? What does that even mean?" And he was like, "No, like how, like you guys are like the rappers of literature, and you are the embodiment of that." Because I mean, I was a mess. Just being real, I was a mess because I didn't know. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, so on and so forth. So, and there was a point. There was a point in my career when I was like, I don't want to be labeled urban. I don't want to be labeled urban. And boom, boom, boom. I need to be outside of the box. And this is why you see a lot of my books have crime novelists on the front of them.
Yeah.
But I've learned to just kind of not worry about labels, just to do what I do.
Yeah.
And Monique Patterson, and she's one of the greatest editors. And on the day of judgment, I will stand in front of God and tell God, Monique Patterson is the GOAT of editing.
Nice.
And she told me, she said, "Dude, listen, there's no classification, no genre for what you do. We can.
Right.
There's no box. There's no box where you fit,
Yeah.
because I've mixed a little bit of all kind of elements into the stories." And that was like such a that was like the ultimate pat on the back for me,
Yeah.
because it was confirmation that I knew where I was going with my stuff was the right direction, to not be boxed in, to just do what I do.
Yes. Right. That sounds beautiful. It resonates for me as a writer and as a reader. When I went back to reread Black Lotus, there was a line in there, and in fact, I remember hearing you on National Public Radio a few years back.
NPR,
when
yeah.
you did a feature. I think it was about the Calabash Festival, and you were doing a reading from Black Lotus. And there's a line in that one, where Father Fleming, here's the wind whisper his name, and I just, that poetry made my goosebumps and the hair on my arms stand on end. Would you know when you're in the zone? Is it a matter of like, oh, you can just kind of turn it on and you write a certain amount every day at a certain time, or do you know when you just got this thing that, like Monique would have told you, you're your own genre?
If I could turn it on and turn it off, I wouldn't be late for my deadlines.
Nice.
So it's like when you catch lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
It's like when it hits you,
Yeah.
you just kind of go. You kind of go. And those are the times where I'm like locked away and I'm just in my own head and living in my own world, and everybody's eating fast food and cold cuts in the house for however long it takes for me to get this off my chest and get this out.
Yeah.
So in a perfect world, I would be able to turn it on and off, but I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. All right. Good. Thank you. I needed to know personally, and it's it totally resonates with me. Now, I just to get a little deeper into Black Lotus too. Maybe just the opening for me was sort of genius, and in fact, both of these books you got a prologue, right?
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, you just grab us. You don't want to ever. A lot of people are going to read this book in one night and then want to go back and read more if they haven't already. But did you know that's how it had to be, a little non-linear with going backwards in time after that moment?
In a sense, with all my books, if you look at all of my books, it's always a prologue, because I'm always the fly on the wall as far as when it comes to my readers. So I know I got to get you in these first few pages to keep you with me, because sometimes I drag stuff out with the introduction of the characters. So I know I got to get you. Yeah. And with the Black Lotus, that prologue was actually, I think that prologue was actually chapter 6 when I started out.
Yeah.
And I took it and I said, no, you have to,
Yeah.
like, this is the build-up. This is it right here. And you
Nice.
have to let the readers know that you're about to sit down, you're about to put your seatbelt on and buckle up for an amazing ride.
Yeah. Good. I've noticed that, and I even forgot it was around chapter 5 that I realized, oh, wait a second, we're almost back to the 13 hours later,
Right, right.
and it
He
was
was like,
so
oh,
cold. I hope I haven't. Folks, some of people will have read it already. They got it Tuesday. Maybe they got the ebook right away, or hopefully they bought it from their small bookshops.
yes,
And yet,
support independent bookstores.
absolutely. And I also understand that folks who order direct from Akashic, the publisher, they got for a limited amount of time signed book plates they'll get with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool too. Yeah, so that was cold and just wonderful when I realized, whoa, I'm back. It was a trip through time. It's one of those moments
Yeah.
that you're reading backwards and forwards at the same time in the book, so you can go back and remind yourself how cool that was. And now you're back to the present.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, wait a minute, this makes sense now.
Yeah, yeah, right. And then you still got more than half the book to go, and you're just like, yeah, it's good, good. Now, I sort of feel like I got into a little when you write, and that it's got to be when the magic in a bottle comes
Yeah.
to you. Do you have a place? I mean, do you have a spot in your home where you can kind of, or do you spread out, or do you ever write out in public? That kind
Yeah,
of thing?
no, pretty much I do a lot of writing outside. My thing is I have to have a window, and I don't know what it is. Like you see, I'm sitting by a window now.
Yeah.
It's something about, and I guess because my first book, I was looking out of a project window, living in New York City housing and broke, and I'm eating ramen noodles every day, and I'm looking out this window and I'm getting this story together. So
Yeah.
windows have always been my thing. And where we live now, like we live in a like little small township now, so I sit outside and write a lot. And even like my wife and my daughters are always like, it's 40 degrees. You're outside with a scarf on, and you're typing. Even when we were in Jamaica, when everybody was like, and it was funny. If when the video interview comes out with me and Johnny, we talked about it, and everybody was looking for me because everybody's having the time of their life in Jamaica, but I was always outside by the pool writing.
Yeah.
So it's like again when you catch that, and it's something about just outside
Yeah.
where I can drown everything out and just do what I need to do.
Yeah. Very cool. By the way, breaking news I see in the conversation on the side. People can also get the signed book plates direct from Mysterious Galaxy. Awesome. Way to go. Good coordination.
Oh, that's amazing! Yeah.
And Mysterious Galaxy. I'm going to head over actually right there. Get another browser window open tonight while we're still here. So the outdoors sort of thing too. Do you ever do research that's like field research? Do you ever have to every now and then say, I want to figure out how a different kind of character speaks? And I don't know, 10 months ago, we might have gone to a coffee shop and done some eavesdropping or something. Or do these characters, do you just feel like you're channeling them and you know the nuances of how this character will speak differently from that character, a cop versus a gangster? What is it you do to get these characters come to life?
I'm absolutely channeling because I've always been a Rolling Stone. So I remember I was one of those people, right, where I may wake up tomorrow and say I want to live in Oregon, and I'll figure out a way to get to Oregon, and I won't make a whole lot of money in Oregon, but I'm getting to know the people of Oregon and the little nuances of Oregon. So that's always been my own thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the characters are based on people that I know in real life. So I always say like it's 80% nonfiction, with the 20% I'm just kind of judging it up. So even with the Black Lotus stuff, it was an ode to like the Shaw Brothers kung fu films, like the Five Deadly Venoms and Crippled Avengers and stuff like that. So it was all ode to like my growing up and things that I pull from my brain, And I remember I used to cut school and go to the library and read about Templar Knights and things like that. And so this is all stuff I got to incorporate in these Black Lotus stories.
Yeah, I can see that the Black Lotus influence from kung fu films. Fight scenes are hard, and you do them really well. Any tips for aspiring writers to just do a fight scene right? Is there any secret or two that you learn that you know you got to do every time, even if every fight's different?
See it in your head. See it in your head. Like the characters that you want to go at it, think about it from a cinematic standpoint.
Nice.
Which you would like to watch on television. Like, okay, like if you got these two characters and how you want them to go at it, how would you see it in your mind and you flesh it out to the best of your ability?
Yeah, right. Cinematic is right. You got to picture where you're viewing it from. It all's going to happen fast, but you almost have to slow it down, bullet time.
Yeah.
You can get away with that.
Because I write my books like movie frames, so I'm kind of trying to show you as opposed to telling you.
Yeah. Nice. I got it. When you say some of these things, I wonder, do you ever teach? Do you ever do a one-off workshop, or do you ever want to?
No, I'm actually, because people have been asking me about this for years. So right now, what I'm in the process of doing is putting together a writer's workshop to walk you through storytelling and character development from beginning to end. So, and it's kind of like, it's not really solid, but I'm putting it, because I've never taught a class. So I'm just trying to put together, and I'm picking the brains of different people that I know that do like master classes and stuff. So just trying to figure out how I can give you the best of me, and I can give you the best education and the best know-how and knowledge of what I'm doing. But yeah, I'm definitely, because I've been around for so long, and I've seen the rise and fall of empires, literally. And God willing, thank God, I'm still here.
Yes.
So I want to share. I want to share the knowledge and some of the things that I know and some of the things that are rattling around in my head. So that way, and I was having this conversation with somebody who was like, you know what, our goal is to leave the world in a better place than when we found it.
Yeah. Wow, I'll be watching out for your workshops. I bet you'll be announcing.
Oh, it's coming very soon.
Website, Twitter, Facebook. Excellent. Makes me happy to hear that you want to teach. That's actually it is a calling. And when you feel like you want to impart that to others and share that with others. Yeah, now, this is called a conversation. So I want to remind people to go ahead and start typing questions in the chat. I can go and see them.
I don't have my glasses on, so I wasn't really looking at the...
No, that's our job. Mysterious Galaxy is helping me, and I'll make sure I see those. Were you going to say something else? I felt like I interrupted, though, on that. Just kind of like the paying it.
It wasn't important. No, it was. But I mean, you kind of, you kind of got it. Yeah, I definitely want to pay it forward. Like, I'm like, I think the biggest reason that I want to do that is because when I came in the game, I was incredibly talented, but also incredibly naive.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of pitfalls. Like everything bad that can happen to an author has happened to me. And I've always managed to resurrect my career and rise like the phoenix from the ashes. Yeah. So I try to give up the game and try to help people avoid those pitfalls. And people always say, well, how do you write a book? How do you write a book? How do you write a book? I don't know. I just sat down one day and started talking to myself. But now, as I'm a little bit older, I can put it more into context and break it down to you in not necessarily layman's terms, but in a way to where you can understand it and I can articulate it to you to where, because I feel like writers are born. You can't teach writing. Yeah. But maybe I can help to unlock something in you that can take you to the next phase of where you want to go.
Mm-hmm. You piqued my interest. Any particular little anecdote of some of the things that might have actually been impediments early on, mistake that you made that turned out to be?
Yes, absolutely. Because I was always, my main thing early on was I was always too ashamed of where I came from to write about it. Too ashamed where I came from to write about it. And then somebody, I bought a copy of Daddy Cool. And I was late to the party with DAWGZ. And I read Daddy Cool and I read Horseman. And I said, wait a minute. This dude is putting it all on the table. He's not holding anything back. his his he's articulating and he's highlighting his greatness as well as his faults.
Yes.
And that's what taught me, like, as a writer, you got to leave it all on the table,
Yeah.
regardless of how people feel about you. I wrote a book about and I'm like a meat and potatoes writer.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote a book that dealt with well, it was a story that dealt with same sex relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and some people didn't get it, and other people applauded me for stepping outside of that box. But I'm like, this is what you have to do. You have to push yourself. You have
Mm-hmm.
to block out what John Q. Public thinks of you and what you do, and you just have to write. You have to
Mm-hmm.
write. You have to put it all on the table. If you hold anything back, you're destined for failure.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow, that's beautiful inspiration. I'm going to check out Daddy Cool.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. I see some Q's and A's now, and I'm ready to start firing them at you. Thank you.
Let's go.
Space Galaxy. We got, what do you think is the key to a long-term career in writing?
Alcohol. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, but you just have to really be true to yourself. It's very easy to get sucked up into industry politics and trends. And I couldn't tell you how many times I was just so disheartened that I said I quit. I quit, and then I would get an idea for a story. I got a bunch of retirement letters and statements that I was gonna release, like, oh, I've had my run in it, but another story, because it's sometimes it can get tedious, because when you start signing with majors and you start getting deeper into the game, you lose sight of why you started doing it in the first place, out of love.
Yeah.
My like, to this day, like, all my books were done out of love. But when you come to the industry politics and the finances and the this and the that, it can kind of dishearten you. Like, I had my initial experience in publishing was not a good one. And so I was like, oh my God, why would I continue to subject myself to this?
Yeah.
And I came to the understand that you subject yourself to it because you love it.
Yeah. Right on. All right, I got another question. What is your, and clearly we've had some people who've been doing some reading already this week. What was your favorite character in BL2?
Golden Arm. He was one of my favorites.
Great. Good. I want to keep them coming. I like the quarantine
Yeah, keep
Q&A
'em
I watch
coming.
sometimes, Fast and Furious. What was the inspiration for Kala? How did she come to you?
She came to me. How did Kala come to me? Like I said, I started writing the Black Lotus many years ago. But I would always go back to it and dance with it and dabble with it. But I wanted her to be like, and my vision for her, and I think I put it in one of the books. The first scene that popped in my head for her was when she was in, like, the little white communion dress with the Mary Jane shoes, and she's strapped to this altar, and the priest is whipping her, and he's like, "What is your vow? What is your this? What is your that?" And I said, "Man, this would be so balls out cool." And then, it was like the war in the Middle East and all of that stuff going on. And I'm like, this would be so balls out cool if somebody plucked this little girl from this war-torn country and gives her a proper education and sets her on the path, and the thing that they ask in return is you murder. And the whole thing with the Black Lotus is she thinks it's in service of God, which goes back to the Templars. How they, whether they were right or wrong, it was like whatever the Vatican needed done. This is where you step up. And then I just kind of started, and it's like with all my characters. Like, if I with my characters, I may write a character and then not want to do nothing with it. But there's some characters where I become emotionally attached to, like, as if they were real, and she's one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I love learning that about this character. And that scene, obviously, yeah. I could see how that came to you. The birth
What
of
is your vow? Yeah, what is your vow? And he's just whipping this little girl, and it brings about so many different emotions in you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm going to keep going with these good questions. What
Yes.
What tactics do you use to keep adding to your novels until you're finished?
My ego. I'm a Sagittarius. We have big egos. I have to impress you every time I put a novel out. And it becomes a little tricky. When you got like 30 something novels, 40 novels, it gets tricky to not inadvertently recycle the same story. But my ego, I gotta be like, and I always tell people, if I stop writing today or tomorrow, I'm gonna be the top 5 in any conversation as far as urban fiction from now until the end of the world.
Yeah.
And it's not me being pompous, but I know what I put into it, the rigor. Like, and a lot of these books are written in weeks because I always wait to the end of the deadline, and so it's like I always wanted to. My goal was never to be the author who sold the most books, but the author who is the most well remembered.
Hmm.
And so this is what motivates me because you gotta like when you read a Kawan book, you have to leave with something that carries over into your personal life.
Nice.
It can't just be like, oh, it was a great book. Nah, I need you to be like, well, why? And I need to spark great conversations like this one that we're having today. Why? Like, how did it come about? And so this is why each of the characters have individual souls, individual destinies. If I give you a name, I have to give you a story.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Thank you. That's really inspiring. I appreciate it. Well, next question. And by the way, we've clearly got some fans here. Shay's asked a good question. Drenna is clearly read deep into your catalog. The way Black Lotus 2 ended made me feel like this is the bridge to Animal 5 and quite possibly a book 3. Am I reading too much into it? Asked Drenna.
And see, and this is the thing. People, I'm big on timelines. People never pay attention to the timelines. Like, let me give you an example of what I mean, and then I'll go and I'll answer that. I wrote GANGSTA first, right? GANGSTA timeline is 2002. I wrote Road Dogs second. The timeline in Road Dogs was 1995. So when characters from GANGSTA interacted with the characters from Road Dogs, people was like, well, if Lou Loki existed, how did that happen? It's the timeline. So when you read, and I'm trying to talk around it so not to blow it, it has nothing to do with Animal 5. It takes place long before that. It actually leads into, I'm trying hard not to say, it leads into Animal 2.
Huh. Did you hear that, Drenna? That's really
It leads into Animal 2.
specific. Good. Awesome. Great. And we did all that without giving too much away. People now want to read more, so nothing's been spoiled.
And I know, and that was like one of the biggest questions because of the way the book ends. There's a scene at the end of the book, and people are like, "Oh, I knew this, and I knew this," and you really didn't know anything because you didn't pay attention to the timeline.
Yeah.
The timeline, it's before all this happened.
Yeah. Thank you. And just reminding people, a couple more questions are welcome. I'll try to get to all of them. And good one next up. Can you tell us about your publishing company, Right to Eat Concepts, and the
Right to Eat
significance of
Concepts?
owning your own imprint, especially when there's so
Let
few black owned?
me show you how real. I don't know if you can see it. On my right hand, Right to Eat is tattooed, and this was long before I started the publishing house. And like I said, my experiences with publishing were not good in the beginning. And so I was venting to somebody once, like, yo, man, you know, all this bull stuff because they're cheating us. You know, the man got their foot on our neck, you know, young, angry kids. And somebody said, man, why don't you stop complaining and put your money where your mouth is? Yeah. And I did. So now the thing with Right to Eat Concepts, I didn't want to create or structure something to where, like, all right, we're in this to make money. I mean, of course, we want to make money. We want to recoup what we spent. But I wanted to teach. I wanted everybody that came under this flag, because Right to Eat is a way of life. This is how I live. If I don't write, I don't eat. I'm gonna starve. If I don't write, if I'm in here and I'm not writing, I'm gonna starve. So, and I wanted people to adapt that mindset and that way of life. And it's like for every 5 authors you publish, maybe 1 will get it. And that was my whole thing. And I stopped publishing because it became really, really disheartening to me after a while. Yeah. Because it's like, people don't understand, like, let's remove the financial from it. But the time, like whenever I put out a book from somebody else, that's 3-4 months that I'm not writing. So while I'm trying to help you get this out, this is 3 or 4 months I'm not writing. This is 3 or 4 months so with my family, I'm not generating money for my family. Yeah. So, and, you know, but it's and it fills your heart with joy when you see one of them make it and take off. But the other 4 that are like, I didn't have the same success as other authors that came out of your imprint. It's your fault. It's not anybody's fault. It's the universe's fault. My name can get people to pick up the book. Mm-hmm. But it has to be your gift and your talent that keeps them engaged. And then what are you going to do with your career after you leave Right to Eat Concepts? Mm. Don't just, because I'm not a crutch. Mm-hmm. I'm a match. I'm the match to spark the fire. I'm not a crutch. Yeah. So what you do after that is totally up to you. So if you did not go on to achieve success after that, you can't look at me and say, you're a crook, you're a robber, you did something wrong. I gave you an opportunity. I invested money in you.
Yeah. Very cool. Thank you. A couple more questions that came
as many questions as you need to ask. It's fine. I'm here for you.
I think this is a great conversation. So great for Mysterious Galaxy to host this. You know, West Coast. So we're at like 7:30, 8 o'clock here. Y'all are at 10:30, 11 o'clock. Thank you, West Coast, for sticking with us. What part of Black Lotus 2, just to bring us back to the big publication event that we're celebrating this week, what part of Black Lotus 2 brought you the most joy or satisfaction to write?
The end.
The end.
The end. The end. Because it's like, and again, I got to talk in circles. When you create a character that people think that they have figured out, and they do something and they go totally off the rails, and you're like, yes, that's it. So I think the end.
Yeah, very cool. That's right. And you know, just my own personal experience, that prologue is so strong. People will see it when they read it. And,
thank you.
And yeah, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard a story about a famous filmmaker who was asked, how do you make sure you make the best film possible? He says, whenever I'm done with a book or, a screenplay, I always just don't even worry about what's the order of my chapters. I just take the second best scene, whatever it is in the whole thing, and I put it first. And then I take the best scene and I put it at the end. And then I shuffle everything else.
Yeah, that's true to an extent. Like, and I always tell people, it trips people out. I write my stories like patchwork quilts.
Yeah.
So like when I was mentioning earlier, the prologue was originally a later chapter.
Yeah.
So it's like the whole time I'm writing, I'm kind of they're like sliding plates.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, okay, well this wasn't potent enough. Move it. This is more potent. Move it here. So that's true to an extent.
Yeah. You got to be willing to do that. It's like Rubik's Cube or like those little 2D puzzles we used to move the little squares around.
I know, right? The little thing, yeah. But, but the thing about that is when you do stuff like that, when you are swimming in the deep end, as I like to call it, you have to rewrite the whole story. Like when I took that prologue from chapter whatever it was and put it in the beginning, I had to stitch the whole. And Johnny and them were like, Kwan, where's this book? And I'm like, I swear to God. But I'm just like weaving it and I'm stitching it in my own head. And I'm like, nobody, and it's not anything that you can put into words.
Yeah.
And in the context of doing business, if you got a deadline, publisher don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear you went into your artistic bag and you started sprinkling fairy dust on it. They don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear it. But it was a necessary evil, and people hung me out. I was supposed to get Black Lotus in May, and it didn't come out till Election Day. But if I had gave you Black Lotus in May as it was, you would have said, come on, is trying to cheat us.
We needed it so bad this week. I was so happy to be reading it this week. I completely forgot about the world.
Man. And it was a good thing because it was a welcome distraction.
Yes,
and Black Lotus, and like with my stories, I go through the editing process and I skim through them with the edits, but I never read my stories. It's always years later when I read it. But Black Lotus, I read like 3 times already.
Yeah.
Black Lotus 2.
Yeah. I got a couple more just to, sort of cooling down now, re-entering the atmosphere. When you begin a story, do you know how it's going to end, or do you surprise yourself as you're writing?
Never. There was only 2 stories that I knew how they were going to end, and that was Gutter and Animal 5. Those were the only 2 stories that I ever started right out. Like I wrote the end first, and then I came back. But other than that, like, and people don't believe me, and I swear to God, I'll put my hand on a stack of Bibles. I don't use outlines and nothing. Even if you look at the synopsis for certain books, they are totally have nothing to do with the actual story. I freestyle from page to page. I never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, good. Keeps it interesting for all of us.
Yeah, for me especially, because I'm like, oh man, you did that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and last but not least, what are the best and most challenging parts? Oh, wait, one more question coming in, but
Sure.
next to last, what are the best and most challenging parts of writing a series instead of a standalone, and vice versa? That's like four questions.
Well, okay, and this is gonna be a long answer.
Good.
When I originally started writing, and if you look at like GANGSTA, Road Dogg, Street Dreams, Hoodlum, Eve, Hood Rat, I was 6 books in before I did a sequel. Because I was always one of those people like, man, like, I'm not doing no sequels. I'm going to tell it all in one story.
Yeah.
But sometimes, and again, you become so attached to those characters, you feel like everything has not been said. Yeah. And so, but I don't set out to say, even if you sign me, like, and you can ask St. Martin's Press, they signed me for the Hood Rat series. And though it was called the series, each book was a standalone story, which is reoccurring characters. So I can't train my brain to write a series. It's impossible for me to do it. Like if I start feeling it and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go, but I can't say, all right, I'm gonna give you a series, because 9 times out of 10, whatever outline I gave you to where we negotiated the deal and you paid me, the books are not gonna read nothing like the outline. Yeah. You're gonna get a whole totally different slew of books, and you're gonna be like, well, what the fuck is this?
Right.
But you'll get it. You'll get it.
That's right. Very cool. You know, by the way, we got these cool follow-up questions as a result of the previous one about
I'm here for it.
Whether you know the ending. I think this had to do with only Gutter and Animal 5, knowing those endings. The 2 little follow-up questions I see now in the chat are, so you knew about Gutter, that's one, and the other one is, Animal's probably the only character that can get with Lou Locke? Question mark.
Nope. I mean, Animal and Lou Locke are two sides of the same coin. One was a blood and one was a crip. And I think that all of the characters, if you take, like, let's say Lou Locke, Demon, Kane, the Hound, Priest, they were all prototypes. I was trying to figure out a formula for the ultimate character, which ended up being Animal.
Yeah. Wow.
So, but I'm like, I mean, I wouldn't even put them, like, you can't even put those two in a fight because they're two different dynamics, man.
Yep. You clearly got some real fans here who now are just asking like that.
And I love them for it. I don't call them fans. I call them my cousins.
That's right.
I try to stay away from the word fans because I feel like fans.
Yeah.
When I say fan, I feel like it puts me here and puts them there, and we all here.
Well, yeah. Thank you, cousin Anissa and cousin Stanley James II. And Anissa says,
what up,
that's why I
cuz?
love animals so much. And actually, this is always a good last question. I really believe in it because some of it, you finish a book 6-8 months ago before it comes out. What current projects are you working on now? What are you excited about moving ahead, Kuan?
I got Animal 5. I'm not, and that's like I'm doing a Beyonce with Animal 5. I'm not telling nobody when I'm putting it out. I'm just gonna put it out. I got Animal 5. I have The Reluctant King. I have Broken Promise. I have, and these are books that I already signed off on. What else? I'm doing the Diamond Prince. Well, the Diamond Princess is gonna come towards the end, but I'm like, God willing, I'm going to rain fire and freaking brimstone. 2021, fire and freaking brimstone.
Yes, you heard it. We need it.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. And one more follow-up here in the chat. So you think Loke wouldn't outsmart Animal?
Oh my God! Lou Locke has an unfair edge.
Yeah.
And people that have read Gangsta and Gutter know what the unfair edge is. Lou Locke has Animal has a one character is pumped full of vampire blood, and one character has a cursed weapon. So I don't know. I don't know how that would play out.
That's a hard toss-up.
Yeah. It is very much so.
Super hard toss-up wise, because it's like one has the weapon made to defeat the other, but the other has like intrinsically amazingly awesome physical capacity.
You get it. Oh my God, you get it.
Nice.
I'm just like, that's a hard one, man. And also, I have to share this comment just because I feel like it's so important readers like hear stuff like this. But Drenna said, we appreciate you, Quan. Many times you've brought me peace with
Thank
your
you.
words when I was in a bad place.
And you know what? And this is the reason why I do it. It's not the money. It's not anything because honestly, I've got the publishing industry gives me so many headaches. I wake up every day and say, I'm quitting. I'm going to get a job. But then you have people that say stuff like that. And I realize that I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility for as long as I am able, and I will never overdo it and drag it out. But for as long as I'm able, for as long as I bring people joy and peace and whatever you can take from my stories, I'm going to do it. I'm here until the end.
Well, I can tell you have a lot of readers who you impact in a very beautiful way. So I'm super happy we got to be a part of sharing you with them tonight. And thank you so much, Robert, too, for moderating. I hope when you bring rain and fire and brimstone that we get to celebrate next year with you in whatever form that
Yes.
comes. Because truly, you are just like the way you speak and bring things to life and everything is such a ridiculous pleasure to get to listen to. So just thank you
Oh,
so much.
thank you. So, oh man, thank you. Oh, you boost my ego right now.
Hell yeah! Hey, you know, when someone's got it, you gotta let them know they got it. I'm a firm believer in that.
Thank you
So,
so much.
of course. So thank you so much, Quan. Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you so much for all the amazing readers, cousins who attended the
Yes.
event and for all of your questions and everything. This really was just like a beautiful way to have a Friday night and go buy the book. I mean, what else can I say?
Buy the book. While we're waiting for them to finish counting all these damn votes, buy the book.
Yeah.
Read the book. Read the book.
I
Occupy
mean,
yourself.
let me ask you this. Do you like badass assassins? If you say no, I question your character. So, I mean, what are you waiting for? But we
Buy
will
the
go
book.
ahead. We'll go ahead and end it tonight and sending all the book love to everyone out there. And we will
Thank
see
you
you
guys
guys.
so much. It was amazing. Thank you guys. I appreciate all of you and I appreciate everybody that tuned in. Thank you so much. It was my honor and my privilege to do this.
Oh, it was our pleasure to have you. Bye, Quan. Bye, Robert. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Wonderful evening.
Good.
Good night.
Good.